Hello and welcome to CKE 10,001's gaming channel. In this video, we'll be looking at my Weiss Schwarz Persona 4 Yukiko Yukata English deck profile. This deck build runs 16 level 0s, 12 level 1s, 10 level 2s, 4 level 3s, and 8 climax cards. I'm running 4 copies of Chie in Yukata. It has 1 auto effect. When this card attacks or is frontal attacked, you may put the top card of your deck into your waiting room. If that card is a level 0 or lower character, this card gets +1 level and 1000 power until end of turn. So it just fulfills the Yukata condition, and it's pseudo beater card if you get lucky. But it also helps mill and sets up the waiting room for salvages. So that's a good tech for the card. And then I'm running 4 copies of Teddy in Yukata. It has 2 effects. The first is continuous during your opponent's turn. All your other characters get 500 power. The second is auto. This ability activates up to 3 times per turn. When you play an event, you can choose one of your characters, and that character gets 1000 power until the end of turn. And then the event you use in this deck is an edible curry at level 1. And that's take a look at that later. That's the event there. And then I'm running 4 copies of the Brainstormer. Promise with allies Yukiko. It has 1 effect. It's activate, brainstorm, pay 1 restless card, flip over 4 cards from the top of your deck, put them into waiting room. For each climax card revealed, you can choose up to 1 character from your waiting room, return it to your hand. So it's a salvaging Brainstormer. And then I'm running 4 copies of Yukiko Amagi. This card has 2 effects. The first is when a card named Scoring a Hot Stud is placed on your climax area, you can pay 1. If you do, choose a card named Yukiko and Konohana Saikuya in your waiting room and return it to your hand. And the second effect is activate, rest this card, choose one of your Chie cards with Chie's card name, and it gets 1500 power. So the Sakuya is that level 2. And then the Chie that gets 1500 power is usually your level 0, since it's only Yukata and Chie card in the deck, which is there. And then I'm running 4 copies of the Unconquerable Snow Black Yukiko Amagi. So its name is not what it says. It's been errated, so it's not that one. But it has 1 effect. If the number of fan or Japanese closed characters you have is 3 or more, this card gets 1500 power and hand encore. So it's becomes a 1/7k with hand encore. And then I'm running 4 copies of Finish with a Single Blow Yukiko. It has 2 effects. The first is when this card is placed on stage from your hand, you may choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. The second is when this card is placed on stage from your hand, you can pay 1. If you do, you can choose a card named an edible curry in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So it bonds to that event card at level 1. And the first ability is very helpful because there's a lot of cards that require your opponent's field to be rested. So that's why we're running 4 copies of this card. And then an edible curry, I'm running at 4 copies. Its effect is choose one of your characters, and that character gets the following ability until end of turn. Auto. When this card becomes reversed, if the level of this card's battle opponent is lower than or equal to the level of this card, you may reverse that character. Essentially, it makes all your characters into level reversers, or at least the ones you target with this event. And then the second effect is if your opponent has no standing characters, you may choose a card in your opponent's waiting room and put it on top of your opponent's deck. So you can stack damage. So if you play 3 of these, you know it's going through and guarantee that damage. And it combos with that, level 1 combos with that event. And then at level 2, I'm running 4 copies of Yukiko in Yukata. It has 3 effects. The first is continuous. All your other fan or Japanese characters get 1000 power. The second effect is auto change. At the beginning of your draw phase, you may pay 2, return this card to your hand. If you do, choose a card named Young Okami Yukiko in your waiting room and put it on the stage position that this card was on. It changes into the level 3 card right over there that we'll look at later. And then the third effect is activate, rest this card, If you do, choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. So it helps, again, combo with the rest of your deck, just with like the level 1, and that for the event, resting your opponent's characters. And then I'm running 2 copies of Yukiko and Amaterasu. It has 2 effects. The first is continuous. If your opponent does not have any standing characters, this card gets 2,000 power. The second effect is a climax combo. When this card attacks, if a card named Salvation is in your climax area, you can choose a character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. It combos with this climax card, character salvage climax. And then I'm running 4 copies of Yukiko and Konohana Sakuya. It has 3 effects. The first is continuous. When this card is played from your hand, you may choose one of your cards named Yukiko Magi and put it into your waiting room. If you do, you may play this card with 0 cost. So you can sacrifice the level 0 to play this card instead of paying 2 stock. And the second effect is continuous. This card gets 500 power for each of your opponent's rested characters. Third is when this card is played on stage from your hand, you may choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. And then I'm running 4 copies of Young Okami Yukiko. It has 2 effects. The first is when this card attacks, reveal top card of your deck. If the revealed card is a fan or Japanese closed character, deal 1 damage to your opponent. The second is auto encore. Put a character from your hand into your waiting room. So it has hand encore. And then the last 8 cards of the deck are the climaxes. I'm running 4 copies of Scoring a Hot Stud, which combos with the level 0 Yukiko Amagi. And then I'm running 4 copies of Salvation, which combos with the level 2. Thanks for watching. Please check the link in the description below to see an overview of this deck build. Next up will be the Japanese deck profile of this deck. So here is my Japanese deck profile for Persona 4 Yukiko and Yukata. This deck build runs 16 level 0s, 16 level 1s, 6 level 2s, 4 level 3s, and 8 climax cards. The first card we're going to take a look at is Promise with Allies Yukiko. I'm running this card at 4 copies. It's a Brainstormer. Act, Brainstorm, pay 1 rest card. For each climax card revealed, you can choose up to 1 character in your waiting room and add it to your hand. So it's a salvaging Brainstormer at 4 copies. Then I'm running 4 copies of Clean Cut Yukiko. Its effect is when the battle opponent of this card becomes reversed, if there are 3 or more cards in your stock, you can choose one of your other characters, rest it, and move it to an empty slot in the back row. So essentially, you can attack with another card and then save that card for later with this Clean Cut card. And then I'm running 4 copies of Yaso High Group Yukiko. It has 2 effects. The first is continuous. All your other characters that are either fan or Yukata get 500 power. Second is activate rest this card. Choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. So very good utility card that helps combo with the rest of the deck. And then I'm running 4 copies of Swimsuit Yukiko. It has 1 effect. It is if your opponent does not have any standing characters, this card gets 1500 power. So it's a 004K. Then at level 1, I'm running 4 copies of, let me focus in on that a bit. Finish with a single blow Yukiko. It has 2 effects. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, you may choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. Second effect is when this card is placed on stage from your hand, you can pay 1. If you do, choose a card named An Edible Curate in your waiting room, return it to your hand. So it bonds to that event card, at level 1. Then I'm running 4 copies of the Unconquerable Snow Black Yukiko Amagi. It's a 1/1 6500 power. It has 1 effect, continuous. If the number of other fans or Japanese closed characters you have is 3 or more, this card gets 500 power and auto encore. Put a character from your hand into the waiting room. So it's a 117K with hand encore if you fulfill the condition, which you should, because everyone in this deck is a fan or a Japanese character. And then the event card I'm running is Inedible Curry at 4 copies. The first effect is choose one of your characters, and that character has the following ability until end of turn. Auto, when this card becomes reversed, if the level of this card's opponent is lower or equal to the level of this card, you may reverse that character. So it makes all your characters into level reversers. And then the second effect is if your opponent does not have any standing characters, you may choose a card in your opponent's waiting room and put it on top of their deck. So you can stack damage and guarantee damage goes through. You can play multiple of these in a row. And then I'm running 4 copies of Self-Proclaimed Special Investigation Squad Yukiko. It has 2 effects. The first is continuous. If there are 5 or more cards in your stock, this card gets 1000 power. Second effect is Climax combo. When Konoha Sakuya activated, is placed on your Climax area. If this card is in your front row, you may choose a card named Yukiko Self-Proclaimed Special Investigation Squad in your waiting room and put it on any slot on the stage. So it calls itself. And then I'm running 2 copies of Case Closed Yukiko. It has 1 auto effect. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, you can pay 1. If you do, choose level 0 lower character in your waiting room, put it on an empty slot in the back row. Then I'm running 4 copies of Yukiko and Yukata. It has 3 effects. The first is continuous. All your other fan or Japanese closed characters get 1000 power. Second is auto change. At the beginning of your draw phase, you may pay to return this card to your hand. If you do, choose a card named Young Okami Yukiko in your waiting room and put it on the stage position that this card was on. Third is activate rest this card. Choose one of your opponent's standing characters and rest it. So, this card has a lot of good effects, and it changes into that level 3 that I'm running 4 copies of. Young Okami Yukiko has 2 effects. The first is auto. When this card attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If the reveal card is a fan or Japanese closed character, deal 1 damage to your opponent. Second is auto. Encore. Put a character from your hand into your waiting room to resurrect this. And then the last 8 cards of the deck are all kind of character salvage climaxes. 4 copies of Scoring a Hot Stud, just for the character salvage trigger. No combo with this card. And then 4 copies of Konoha Sakuya Activated, which is for your level 1 combo. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Check EncoreDecks.com and the link in the description below to see an overview of this deck profile.